All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, to all of our class of 2024 students. Whether you've decided to come to Lehigh or not, we hope that you are going to learn a lot about the amazing opportunities we have here at Lehigh in the sciences, particularly for women. So we are joined by some really great panelists. I'm excited to hear what they are going to share about their experiences. We have 3 students and 2 faculty. We are going to be gladly accepting your questions. So if you have anything that is on your mind about things related to specifically what you want to study, or just generally about the climate at Lehigh, you are welcome to either do like one of the little hand raising or clapping or thumbs upping, and I'm happy to call you out, or you can just type your question in chat and I will be happy to ask it. Danielle is my colleague. We're both here from the admissions office, and so we had the pleasure of reading your applications. We're really excited for this class. This is going to be the toughest class we've ever brought in, just because normally we bring you all to campus and welcome you and show you our beautiful facilities, and now we've got this, which is my home office, and everybody's interesting background behind them. But thank you for your patience and still your excitement for wanting to learn more. So panelists, I will start with our faculty. Maybe Professor Jedlicka, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So my name's Sabrina Jedlicka. I'm in the Department of Materials Science and Engineering. I'm also in the Department of Bioengineering. I also teach senior capstone design to mechanical engineering, bioengineering, and material science. My research area is in biomaterials, so I mostly work on really any interactions that a material could have with a biological system. And I do mean any interactions. We work in everything from environmental pathogen transport to how nanomaterials influence stem cells.
And Professor Ware, you're up next.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Vassie Ware, and I'm a professor in biological sciences. I actually wear a number of hats at Lehigh, and in addition to my teaching duties, I have a research lab, and my lab is interested actually in 2 problems. The first is that we study a macromolecular complex in cells that's called the ribosome, and we're very much interested in how gene expression is actually regulated by events and interactions at the ribosome itself. So that's a major part of the research that we do. And then the other part is related to viruses that infect bacteria. We're very much interested in defense mechanisms that viruses actually mount, believe it or not, to help hosts defend themselves against other types of viruses. So we spend a lot of time working on those problems, and some of the viruses that we're interested in have actually been used. You may have had an opportunity to hear about a phage therapy paper that got published perhaps last spring, in which phages, these viruses that infect bacteria, were used to tamp down an infection that a young girl with cystic fibrosis had in the United Kingdom. And so the whole notion of phage therapy and how it really might be an answer to the antibiotic resistance problem is something that my lab is also very much interested in. I'm also a program director at Lehigh. We have a Howard Hughes Medical Institute program where undergraduates are given research opportunities throughout their academic career at Lehigh. And we're very much interested in the retention of women, other underrepresented groups in STEM fields. And so I invest a lot of my time in that kind of endeavor as well.
Excellent. All right. Amanda, you are first alphabetically, so you can introduce yourself next.
Right. So, hey everyone, my name's Amanda. I'm a senior at Lehigh, so I'm a little sad to be at home right now, but I'm studying bioengineering on the biomechanics and biomaterials track. So, I'm basically really interested in implants, and which I can get into later. But anyway, on campus, I'm the recipient of a research grant. So I'm doing research in one of the labs on Mountaintop campus, where I'm basically making a hydrogel that takes advantage of cell-secreted proteases to elicit some kind of cellular response. So that's a lot of words like put together really quickly. So basically I'm making fancy jello that glows. But also I'm involved in Capstone with Professor Jedlicka. I'm actually a senior peer mentor, so I'm working for another year on Capstone, helping other students as a mentor. I was really involved with orientation, so hopefully you guys get the awesome experience of orientation. And yeah, I'll stop there, but yeah.
Excellent. All right. Rachel, you're up next.
Yeah, awesome. Hi guys, I'm a junior at Lehigh. I'm majoring in biochemistry and minoring in product design. I'm involved in a lab as well with Dr. Rice, where we basically work with live wild-caught chickadees, which are small little songbirds. They're really cute. You can look them up. On campus, I do a lot of work with like event programming stuff. I'm part of University Productions, which is the student-led event planning club on campus. I do community service with the community service office, basically all that good stuff. The reason I'm minoring in product design as well as majoring in biochemistry is because I'm interested in kind of going into the forensic tech industry. So yeah. Oh, and I'm also currently in New Zealand right now. As a STEM major, you can study abroad, and I'm happy to talk all about that as well.
Thanks, Rachel. And Julia, last but not least.
Hi guys, I'm Julia. I'm a sophomore at Lehigh, and I'm a material science engineering major. I'm also in the integrated business and engineering program. And then within that, my main interest is possibly to go into like the outdoor apparel or athletic apparel industry. On campus, I'm a tour guide, as well as I'm involved in a couple of club sports. So I do club ski team and club gymnastics, which are really fun. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Perfect. So admitted students, class of 2024, any questions that you have, certainly feel free to, again, type them in the chat or just kind of unmute yourself. I'll start out with kind of a general question for our students, and that is, how did you choose your major? You probably came from high school and liked science or were good at science. So how do you find out about bioengineering or materials, or how do you choose your major, and how was that process for you at Lehigh?
I can go first.
Yeah.
You got it, Rachel.
Okay. Well, after graduating high school, I kind of realized I had an interest in chemistry, but I wasn't quite sure which track in chemistry I wanted to take. And I figured that biochemistry covered kind of a lot of ground, and I kind of knew I wanted to work a little bit with like life, so I just was like, yeah, biochemistry sounds good. And another thing is, like, the great thing about Lehigh is that there's a lot of flexibility. So like if you do declare your major and then decide that, oh, I don't know if I really want to be doing this, it's like pretty easy to switch. So there's no like fear in declaring. There's only like benefits that you really get from it.
So my story is a little long, but basically, my parents are actually both doctors. So I kind of grew, when I was growing up, it was just kind of like, Amanda's going to be the next doctor in the family. And I don't know, I kind of always like to take my own path a little bit more. But I ended up doing something bio related anyway. But anyway, so I always kind of thought I had a liking for bio, but I sat down my senior year of high school and I thought about it. My dad's an orthopedic surgeon. And I was like, what he does is really awesome, and I have so much respect for him, but I can't see myself being a surgeon, or my mom's a pediatrician. I couldn't see myself working with kids all day, every day. And so I just like sat back and was just like, how can I take my love for bio, but be kind of more behind the scenes in it? So growing up, I really liked math. I really liked science and all of that. So I kind of just figured out that bioengineering was just the combination of all of that. So even though I was kind of supposed to be a doctor, I really feel like I was supposed to be a bioengineer, because like just everything fell into place, and I've never like looked back or regretted it. But I really like Lehigh because it allows me to have other interests and passions also. So I'm actually getting a Spanish minor in addition to bioengineering. So I'm minoring in the College of Arts and Sciences, and I really wanted a school that allowed me to like cover all of my interests, not just engineering or STEM.
I came into Lehigh, wanted to do IBE, which is business and engineering, and I didn't even know if I would like the engineering part. I had never taken a physics class, and I didn't really think I was good at math, but I ended up like enjoying engineering enough, and I really liked chemistry, so I found a major that kind of fit for me and also aligned with what I was interested in doing after college. But I definitely like didn't know going in, like beyond knowing that I liked the IBE program. I didn't really know anything about any of the engineering disciplines, but like once I started to like talk to students at Lehigh and hear their experiences, that helped me a lot as well. Because you can get really awesome advocates in almost any major and like hear great stories about all the different cool programs. So I'm really happy with my choice.
Great. And professors, you both mentioned working with students either in capstone or through research. Talk a little bit maybe about how undergraduate students get involved in faculty research or in their own research.
I could start. So there, actually, Lehigh is really in a wonderful position for students to get engaged in research, actually starting right when you walk in the door. I mentioned the fact that my interests in research include working with bacteriophages. And Lehigh is part of a Howard Hughes Medical Institute initiative that started over a decade ago. Lehigh's been involved in this program for over a decade, and it's called the C-Phages program, SEA, and that stands for Science Education Alliance. And there are institutions across the country that engage novices, really first-year students, in research activities in a year-long course that allows students to isolate their own bacteriophages from environmental samples that they bring from home or maybe from New Zealand. And so the students are able to isolate these phages, characterize them, name them. They get isolate DNA from them, and then we learn all kinds of things outside of the molecular biology, microbiology, but we learn about the genomes, and they learn computational tools that allow them to annotate genomes. So over a year-long effort, students who are first and second year students have this opportunity. And what happens is that there are all kinds of questions that arise when students are working in this research effort. And so as a result of the questions that have arisen, we've developed several other courses that students can continue on with phage-related research. So there is an advanced phage genetics lab. There's also now a new program where students are able to investigate the functions of a whole series of genes for which it's not known what those genes do. And so it's really, really easy for students in the biological sciences. I have also students who are in bioengineering who are in this phage program. And so it's really open to any number of students. The other thing in my department, biological sciences, probably a good half of our majors, and we have about 400 majors, are engaged in undergraduate research, and faculty in their own labs take on undergraduates who it's not thought of as, you know, some kind of opportunity for which students wouldn't really contribute to advancing the knowledge, the work that is the passion of the faculty member. The students really contribute to extending the research efforts that are going on. And so it's really kind of a neat idea, and really interesting community that develops as a result of undergraduates working right when they come in the door, really, to engage in a number of research activities with faculty. So that's really one thing. And then there are summer programs that exist that students can participate in as well. I am involved in a program that's interdisciplinary in nature. In fact, Dr. Jedlicka has been involved in this program that I'm the co-director of. It's called the Biosystems Dynamics Summer Institute, and she and colleagues have participated in that, and there are teams of undergraduates that work on projects over the summer, and many times those students continue on into the academic year in those projects, and those projects have also sometimes stimulated, they're sort of pilot projects sometimes, and have actually been the foundation for creating some really strong collaborations between the faculty and students that participate in it. So there are really a fair number of opportunities that exist, not only during the academic year and in your coursework even, but independent research and as well during the summer.
So to kind of mimic what Vassie said, my lab actually is almost always full of undergraduate students of various types of majors. I mean, I run what is quintessentially an interdisciplinary research lab. So I have students right now from bioengineering, from physics, from material science, and from environmental engineering. And all of those would be undergraduate students. My graduate students also hail from all of those different departments, as well as mechanical engineering. And I've had undergraduates in my laboratory since the day I set foot on campus. My very first student who helped me start my lab was an undergraduate student. And I've had students who've published first author papers out of my research group. Some of those papers have been driven by work we've done with BDSI students, the program that Professor Ware runs. And it's actually one of the reasons I decided that Lehigh was the place for me. When I was an undergraduate research was not terribly common, but I was lucky enough to have a professor in the College of Veterinary Medicine who wanted me to be part of his group. And I took advantage of that opportunity, and I'll never forget it because I learned so much by just, screwing up in the lab that I very much wanted to pay that forward, because it was the experience in college that shaped me into who I became as a researcher. So I would say that the opportunities are vast, and in a lot of ways those opportunities don't just stop in the lab. They do happen in classes. There are plenty of events on campus that allow you to showcase these products of your work. So in the Department of Materials, we have an undergraduate research symposium. The College of Engineering has a research symposium. The university has the expo most years, where we are having a virtual expo this year so that students can showcase their work. And I think that this shows our dedication as well as our passion for really highlighting the achievements of the students that come through our programs.
Awesome, thank you. So I've put a couple of links over in the chat. One is about the C phages another about biodynamics summer institute, the BDSI program. And we have invited all of the 24s to come to the expo this year. It's certainly not as exciting with posters and hubbub and food and t-shirts and stickers. But you know what? If you come, you can email me and I will mail you a sticker. I bought some really great Mean Girls stickers before this whole thing happened, and I'll mail you one. So there you go. Certainly, if you have any questions, don't be shy. There's hopefully a reason why you're here for this panel, and that's because you want to learn more about being a woman at Lehigh and pursuing STEM, whether it's in the engineering college, whether it's in the arts college, whether it's in IBE or ideas. Even if you're in the business college now but are thinking of doing a minor, certainly we have students who do that as well. So panelists, what advice do you have for women who are interested in doing Lehigh, STEM at Lehigh, or maybe even just STEM anywhere, no matter where they end up?
So no matter where you end up, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is get as involved as quickly as you can, like whether it's in your major or like academically, socially, joining clubs and stuff like that. Really just get your foot in like every door you can. I had one other thing. Oh, also like ask a lot of questions. The professors are there to help you, and like they like just really want to help you achieve like the best potential that you can. So ask all the questions. I'm sure you're not the only one that's thinking it. So just don't be afraid to speak up when you have any. And that includes in this chat. Please ask those questions too.
If I might make a comment in general, it doesn't matter what it is that you do, where you go. I'm always looking for someone as a mentor. And finding a mentor, it doesn't have to be someone in your department. It doesn't have to be a faculty member in your department. But first of all, every student is going to have an advisor. You declare a major and there's an advisor, but that advisor may or may not be the person with whom you necessarily click in certain ways. There's certain people on campus that I think can provide all kinds of support for you. And I always have told students, regardless of what it is that you are thinking of doing, always try to find people that are supportive, and they can help to guide you in all kinds of decision making, or you can bounce ideas off their, based on their experience. So that's always helpful to, and I think that Lehigh and many of my colleagues, Dr. Jedlicka and I have known each other for, I don't know how long. I've been at Lehigh quite some time, much longer than she, but I think there are cohorts of faculty that have such an affinity for helping students to succeed. And you can't help but find us because we find you. That's one of the things that happens. We are really dedicated to trying to really guarantee, as far as we can help, the success of all of our students. But it's really important and very easy to find women who are mentors. We have men who are allies that are also in your corner with regard to helping you to succeed. And so again, look for those people. Even if you're not coming to Lehigh, wherever you are, look for people that you can hear about them. Students will talk about them. You'll hear others, talk about that person down the hallway that has helped a student in so many capacities. We end up doing all kinds of things with our students. We get to know them and understand their challenges, and sometimes students get afraid to ask a question because they think they're the only ones that ever could have that question, and that's never the case. But you can find people that are really dedicated to helping students, and it's really, to me, very obvious among the colleagues that I have at Lehigh. There's a plethora of people that are really in the students' corner. It's very easy to find people like that.
Awesome. So we are getting questions now. Yay! Danielle, do you want to ask some of the questions that we've gotten in the chat?
Absolutely. So the first question that we had, I think, is more for our student panelists. Have you ever felt excluded in the engineering environment?
I can speak a little bit to that. Just what I would say is that there's always going to be some classes in a program that might be STEM where you might feel like the only woman in the room, or like you're kind of a minority in that sense. But to me, I've never felt like personally excluded by any of my classmates or professors at all. But I will say, like, sometimes it does feel like you're the only one. And for me, like, I try to see that as an advantage. And like having a different perspective than everyone else can sometimes be a good thing. And so, like, in any major that's predominantly men, there's going to be that in some form or another. But I do feel like Lehigh does a really good job of supporting you and having like awesome female professor role models in a lot of your classes as well.
That actually ties in with a question I got as well. What is the percentage of women in STEM at Lehigh? I don't know that we keep statistics on just STEM because that's defined in a lot of different ways, but the College of Engineering is about 30% women. That number has been going up every year, which is something that we look to do in the admissions office. So certainly seeing you all here this evening is really great because it's working, right? We have women interested in STEM. Arts and sciences is a little bit harder to narrow down. I'm actually looking through the data in the institutional research office, and I'm seeing if I can maybe narrow it. But perhaps, Professor Ware, do you have a sense of within your areas what the ratio is?
Yeah. So first of all, there's more than 50% women in biological sciences. That's a trend that has been really seen across the United States. So that biological sciences does not have a women in STEM problem, so to speak, okay? Because plenty of women are in the field and are advancing at least to certain levels, okay? There's always this glass ceiling issue that people talk about across any number of disciplines. And one of the issues with women in biological sciences and the sciences in general is that if you are in the academic environment, sometimes there are barriers depending on the institution to having women faculty advance in the ways in which their male colleagues might advance with regard to career and promotion, et cetera. But people are working on that. And that is less of an issue in areas like biological sciences. At Lehigh, there are fewer chemistry and physics majors that are women, but you know, it's not zero. It's definitely not zero. One of the programs that I run actually works on retention issues for students that are typically underrepresented. And women are not, the retention ratios for women at Lehigh in STEM are actually pretty good. If you look at the retention issues overall for all students in STEM fields, at Lehigh it's about 70%. If I were to look only at underrepresented students, and I'm not including women in that, the number was about 50%, which was not a good number for Lehigh some years ago when we started really paying attention to some of these retention issues. But now it's significantly better because of some of the recruitment and program issues that we have been able to institute. So women are actually doing, I think, pretty well in the sciences, especially because of, you know, biological sciences at Lehigh and in other institutions as well.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Jadlicka, I feel like this might be more towards you for the next question, but can you expand a little bit on the concept and classes in material science?
Yeah, so material science is, quite literally the study of materials. Materials surround us. Materials make up every aspect of technology and design that we interact with. So the types of classes that materials students take, they take a common first year curriculum in engineering. So it's calculus, physics, chemistry, more calculus because it's engineering. And then when you declare materials science as your major, you take, well, more calculus and a materials laboratory, which focuses on how you would prepare samples for analysis. So you go through materials prep and materials analysis, and you learn to use almost all of the equipment in our building as a second year student. After that, you start to get into more specialty classes. So we have classes in polymers, ceramics, metals, biomaterials, as well as kind of core concept courses in thermodynamics and phase transformations and electronic properties of materials. We also have a course in reverse engineering, which basically allows you to figure out what something is made of and why, as well as a failure analysis course, which lets you figure out why something broke. So one of the things I like to say about the materials science department is our specialty is breaking stuff. Whether that be intentional or accidental is still yet to be determined, but we do a lot of intentional breaking of materials. We have instruments that are designed specifically to do that. So we cover every class of materials from metals all the way out to biological materials and electronic materials, and our courses are structured around those.
And before we move forward with some of the other questions, do you know how many undergrads are in materials science, and also what the percentage is of women?
So it's a very small department. We are not always the smallest in the engineering college, but we are always one of the top 3 smallest. And we actually use that to our advantage. We have about a 3-to-1 student to faculty ratio, and any given year between 30 and 50% of our students are women. We actually had one year where I think we had up to 60% in that graduating class. So we are one of the departments on campus that has a really high percentage of female faculty. And I think that's part of what draws a lot of young women to our major, is the chance to interact with some really phenomenal scientists who are female and who do work in this material space.
Thank you. So moving forward with some of the questions, we got a few that were in relation to IBE. So Julia, I know you said you were an IBE student. Can you talk about IBE a little bit, maybe what the difference is between minoring in business and having that IBE program, and if it's like double majoring for you?
Yeah, so basically IBE is a program at Lehigh that allows students to study business and engineering together, and it's really flexible. So you'll find that, at least with me, like in your first year you have a lot of the same classes students, and then as you decide what your favorite type of business is or what your favorite type of engineering is, you can get more specific, and you start having classes more with like that specific major that you choose. So most IBE students have like different types of majors, but it is kind of like double majoring. Like I said, it's really flexible, so you kind of make your own path. So personally, like I'm getting a major in material science and engineering, and then a separate major in integrated business and engineering. And then, so that's is it like double majoring? And then the other thing about IBE is that there's a lot of like specialized classes that are only with IBE students. So those are going to be more like entrepreneurial and creative and trying to kind of combine the business and engineering side. So like lots of like problem solving, developing a product start to finish. So those are really cool too. And so the difference between IBE and minoring in business is pretty much that, like those special classes where you get to work with IBE students and like work on a project, and they tend to be really fun. Like there's a freshman workshop where basically you just work on group projects all semester, and it's awesome. And so if you've gotten into Lehigh and you applied IBE, then you would have already gotten in, but you can also switch into IBE when you're at Lehigh. A lot of people do that. If it's something you're interested in, it's totally doable after your first semester, first year at Lehigh.
I shared a link in the chat about IBE. So if you've already been admitted, awesome. And if you haven't been admitted, you're welcome to reach out to me with any questions. I actually do the admissions for that program. So I'm the right gal to talk to. And I'm happy to talk to you about either looking into that program now or joining it, as Julia mentioned, at the end of your first year. They usually take around like 5 to 7 students, but it's a small program. It's around 50 students per year. So certainly give me a holler. If you want, I can put my email address up there or send me a chat. The next question is, how does Lehigh support women in STEM? And I think we talked about some of these already, but you know, students, if any of you are involved in any clubs or organizations or just overall efforts by the university, that'd be great.
So I'm involved in the Society of Women Engineers Club, and so they do a lot of really cool outreach programs, which I really like, because I would have, like, my mom is a great role model as a woman in STEM, but I would have loved seeing more of those role models growing up. So one of my favorite events is the Choices event. So for that event, they bring in middle school girls to Lehigh, and they put on a bunch of really cool like engineering demonstrations for the girls to teach them about different like disciplines of engineering, or what engineering is, or like different ways you can get involved and how much engineering can help you. So I've really enjoyed that. Also, the Society of Women Engineers has an annual conference every year that's just a giant job fair and networking event. So I was actually able to go this past year, and that's why I got my job for after I graduate. But the Society of Women Engineers Club at Lehigh offers a couple of really cool scholarships that will actually like fund some of the members of the club to go to these conferences. And last year, or this past year, it was in Anaheim, California. So I also got to go to Disneyland, which was awesome. So.
Any other things for that particular question? Okay, so on the kind of other side of that, what are some of the challenges of being a woman in STEM? It's at Lehigh specifically. I don't know how many of those you would maybe find at other places, but maybe faculty, you can speak to that as well.
I mean, I believe it was Julia who said that sometimes you feel like you're the only person in the room. You're the only girl in the room. And my own experience coming through college felt a lot like that. I would sit in classrooms with 400 to 500 other students and literally be the only female in the room in a thermodynamics class. I would say that it is much different at Lehigh. Number one, because we don't have very many 500-person classes. But I think secondarily that just the percentage of women who are going into STEM fields, and specifically engineering, has gone up. And Lehigh has done an amazing job of bringing in aspiring female engineers. And you're going to find that network and that support, you know, through your peers and through the faculty. Every single one of our engineering departments has women faculty. And this is something that's actually not 100% common at all engineering universities. So there are challenges, but it mostly comes in the isolation feeling. But as Professor Ware said, find a mentor. And that mentor is going to help get you through some of those rough times that, you know, you're going to experience regardless of what major you choose, just because it's college and there's a lot of unknowns that happen in college.
One thing that I wanted to say, and you know, the feeling of isolation, I've been at Lehigh for quite some time. And in fact, I was the first African American faculty member at woman faculty member at Lehigh. So thankfully, I have been here a long time to be able to say that, and that's a different scenario now. There are other, the diversity across campus is really quite significantly different from what it looked like when I first came to Lehigh. So to be honest with you, you know, I'm a molecular biologist, and as I said, there are a fair number of women in at Lehigh and in my field. When I go to national meetings or international meetings, there are a sea of women, and that's actually a very comforting thing. But when I was coming along in terms of in graduate school, I mean, I could honestly probably blow your mind with some of the comments that that male faculty or even male graduate students might have made that were so staggeringly awful that you really honestly, and I think it might be just because I am a woman of color, that I have sort of grown up, and a woman of color from the South. I've grown up in environments where there were always sort of challenges in one way or the other. And so you build a sense of strength over time. And so to be honest with you, the Lehigh experience for me is not, even in those years when I was the only person of color in science fields at Lehigh, was not really difficult to deal with, simply because I was sort of accustomed to some aspect of that. And things are, again, much different now. But I will say that because Lehigh has really devoted a fair amount of attention to trying to diversify the campus, and not only, you know, what diversity means a lot of things to different people, but the reality is that you can't be good, you can't be excellent unless you have diverse opinions. I think, Julia, you may have said something along those lines about a different perspective. For crying out loud, you cannot accomplish some of the major challenges that we have if everybody's sitting around the table with the same idea. And so diversity alone just brings different things to the table. But then you have to think about the equity issues. And that's where sometimes it's a little bit more challenging for people to think about equity. And I talk about, I raise that issue to some degree in thinking about advancing in your field and what are the opportunities, and are we giving equal opportunities to people, bringing people in and giving them a chance to express their ideas. Is nothing worse than being around a table. There's a diverse group of people around the table, but the people who are in charge, so to speak, don't acknowledge that there are good ideas that would come from other people than they are perhaps used to thinking about. So, you know, there are equity issues that everyone struggles with, but Lehigh's really trying to pay attention to that. And that's not a trivial thing at all, for people to really work on those kinds of issues. But I think at the student level, certainly at the staff and faculty levels, I think Lehigh is making amazing strides in trying to address those issues, because that's how we maintain excellence. It's the only way. And if people accept that, then, you know, we're able to sort of move together collectively and become a better community. That's really what we're striving for.
Wonderful, thank you. So moving forward, do all undergraduate students have access to labs, and how often can they use a lab?
I'm not sure exactly what the last part of the question means, but usually most of the classes come with labs, especially your first year. And then as everyone has been mentioning, like you can get, there's lots of research opportunities, like an insane amount at Lehigh. So if you want to get into a lab in a specific field that you're interested in, it's not hard.
I would say you just need to be proactive. You need to seek out people that you think you may be able to talk to about their research. And, you know, usually if you contact the chair of the department, that chair can tell you a little bit about, you know, number one, other opportunities, or could just point you in the right direction for someone who is usually, you know, eager to work with undergraduate students in the lab. But the best advice is to be proactive in that respect.
Mm-hmm. I can say that, and again, I can bring Dr. Jedlicka into this story because there's a course that I developed about a decade ago. It's called Bioscience in the 21st Century. And it is such a challenge to be able to put that course together. And I'll give you a little bit of an idea. In fact, there's a website for that too, Sarah, so you can take a look at it. Anybody can go in and see lectures that have been given over a course of time. But I want to give you a little idea, and it's relevant to the whole notion of finding faculty and engaging with those faculty early. So this course has about 25 or 30 faculty, mostly Lehigh faculty, but I do invite others from outside of Lehigh. This is the pain in the neck part of the course, because if you can imagine trying to schedule 30 people in a time slot that makes sense. And we deal with topics in biological or in bioscience at large that include things like cancer, neuroscience, and dealing with neurodegenerative diseases, infectious disease, genomics. These are the major topics that we cover. And what I do is to invite faculty from across the campus who specialize research-wise in these areas. All right, so imagine you're interested in cancer research. If you take that course, you actually meet faculty in the course who are doing research in cancer-related themes, okay? The same thing with engineering. I get engineers in the course that are related sometimes to neuroscience issues, or they might be related to physiology related issues. But the point is that students, and the students in the course, many of them are first year students, others of them are from across the colleges. I have business students there. On occasion, I have some engineering students there, but you have a group of students that are now meeting faculty from across the campus, understanding that they actually work in a particular area. And I have actually seen students are invited to, you know, not only come, the lectures are all videotaped, and PowerPoints are put up on this website. I'll give you the web address in a bit, but you can go on and students come up and meet faculty after the lecture. And this is really unusual, I think, for most students, because think about the fact that you might not, you know, if Dr. Jedlicka is not teaching a course for first year students, you might not meet Dr. Jedlicka until later on in your career. But if you're in that class, for example, you get to know who she is. She's working in material science. You get your interest piqued immediately, and you just check the box in your head. Or if you're brave, because you also know that because of Dr. Jedlicka's personality, easy to approach. You approach her after class, you make a connection, she makes a connection with you. You already have a little person in your corner, so to speak. And that happens for students in that class and in other kinds of classes as well. But that particular class, I think, has really helped to expose students early on to the breadth of opportunity across the campus with regard to research activities. And it has even, believe it or not, stimulated collaborations among faculty that didn't even know that there was someone in another department working on an area that they were interested in. I saw that happen with a faculty member in electrical engineering and a faculty member in my department who had this eureka moment in understanding that they were working on something similar, and they then established a collaboration later. But again, both of them have undergraduates working in their labs. So, you know, there are ways to meet faculty. And I think, you know, that course is not the only way, but as Dr. Jedlicka says, you know, be proactive. I find that students sometimes are very hesitant to put their hand out. Even now, we won't be putting our hands out, but just to get an opportunity to meet a faculty member, introduce yourself in the first day of class. Who are you? Faculty are really open to understanding who the students are in their courses, and so, you know, express yourself and let people know that you're interested. That proactive advice is really very, very good advice.
I shared a link to the Wilbur Powerhouse. We're talking a lot about the materials department and the biological sciences, but we also have some really amazing resources for our mechanical engineers, our industrial engineers, our civil engineers. We have some of the most amazing testing equipment for civil engineers in the country, including Atlas, which is a large-scale structural testing facility where you can make your own earthquake. I mean, you can't just go in at any time and do it, but you would have an opportunity. So I've shared that. Certainly, if you are in the engineering college, each department is doing its own information session. And so I urge you to attend those, because you'll be able to ask specific questions about, you know, what kinds of resources do you have for CAD or for materials testing or for microscopes or for, you know, what have you. I'm also going to share a link for clubs related to academic areas. And I see Dr. Ware shared her bioscience link as well. So definitely check out the chat. We are recording this, so you can always come back. We'll post it in our admitted student community. If you're not in that yet, please join. We've been getting a lot of emails about it from our office, but that's kind of the hub for our admitted students. It's where we post these recordings. It's where we have the ability to reach out to current students and faculty and staff. So hopefully that answers the, are there specific science clubs question? The answer is yes. Almost every major has a club. There's honor societies. There are for engineering fraternities, science fraternities. So there's a lot of options in addition to more service related things like the Choices program you heard about, where you kind of pay it forward and work with middle school young women and talk to them about science and engineering. Let's talk maybe a little bit about balance. There are some folks asking questions about, you know, is it hard to be a part of clubs and do your academics and stay on top of things? So students, can you speak briefly about that?
I can start. I will say that it's very different from high school. Kind of hard to describe until you really experience it. But one of the most important things, at least for me, what I do is I keep like a detailed calendar week by week. And usually at the beginning, like when you start joining clubs and like signing up for things, most clubs meet at the same time every week. And so kind of figuring out how that's going to work into your class schedule is the most important thing. Because if the club meets at the time you have a class, it's kind of difficult, you know, to do that. There is some flexibility with some other programs, but it's definitely manageable, you know, to be in STEM and then also be part of like 3 or 4 clubs. You know, it's really just what you want to take on. For me, I was part of like 3 or 4 clubs, my freshman and sophomore year. And then last semester I was taking 20 credits. So I decided to take a step back from some of those clubs, which is also easily doable. Like you can play it semester by semester. Like if you have a busy semester, maybe do a little bit less with clubs, or if you have kind of a lighter one, you can maybe try out a few clubs that like you'd never thought of before. But it's definitely, it's not hard to balance things at Lehigh as long as, you know, you keep a calendar. I think that's pretty much at any point in your life.
At Lehigh, despite my major, I've had the opportunity to get involved in a lot of different things, whether they're academic or not. So I said before, I was an orientation leader for 2 years, and then I was an orientation coordinator last year. I'm also in Greek life. I'm a Rossin Junior Fellow, so I actually represent the College of Engineering at a lot of really cool events around campus. I'm a tour guide. I'm an admissions fellow, so if any of you interviewed at Lehigh, I might have interviewed you. I'm on the club tennis team, but basically, like Rachel said, just try and stay organized. Google Calendar is great. Like whether you want like Google Calendar, like a physical like agenda book, like definitely do one of those, whichever works for you. But also like I really like routines. So when things get really crazy for me, I tend to get a little bit overwhelmed and stressed out. So I try to like keep myself as scheduled as possible. So I'll be like, okay, I'm going to do homework for 2 hours and then I'll go to this club meeting and then I'll take a nap and then I'll do more homework. So I basically just try and keep like that internal schedule going as well, even as I'm keeping the Google Calendar going.
Perfect. One of the questions we got was, how do you find a mentor? And I think maybe we kind of touched upon that, and that's talk to people, reach out, go up to your faculty after class and say, hey, this was really interesting. I like this. Professors, please, I don't want to speak for you, but I think you would be thrilled if somebody came up to you and said, hey, I really love this class. How can I do more of it? So talk to the, women in your dorm, or talk to the guys in your class. Mentors don't have to be women, although sometimes it's nice to have mentors who are. So certainly if you want to reach out about more questions like that, feel free to do that. In the interest of time, it's already 9 o'clock. We'll finish up with the questions here in the chat. The one question was, are there specific first-year seminars or required first-year courses at Lehigh? And the answer is yes, kind of. Depending on the credits you come in with AP scores or dual enrollment classes or international baccalaureate, you are welcome to check out the core curriculum for first-year students based on your college. It'll be different in the Arts and Sciences College than it will be for engineering, than it will be for College of Health, than it will be for IBE students or IDEA students. But you can find the first-year curriculum on the website. If you need help, send me an email, send Danielle an email. We'll be happy to look for it. But every single student at Lehigh takes English. They take at least one math. They take at least one social science. They take at least one lab science, and they take at least one humanities. Now, spoiler alert, engineers take a lot more math than just one, but that's kind of a requirement for everybody across the board. And then depending on your college, as Professor Jedlicka mentioned, the engineers kind of have a core first-year curriculum that's pretty similar. In the arts and sciences, that's not necessarily the case, but many of the natural sciences will look similar to one another as well. Anybody want to jump in with anything else, or did I kind of get it?
Yeah, I want to say that in arts and sciences, there is a freshman seminar requirement. And the course that I was actually talking about, Bioscience in the 21st Century, is an umbrella course for a fair number of biology related kinds of freshman seminars. So we've had biodiversity, a biodiversity freshman seminar, or a cancer related seminar, and so this Bioscience in the 21st Century is sort of an umbrella course under which a whole series of biology related first year seminars exist. But every College of Arts and Sciences student coming in does take a first year seminar. And there are lots of opportunities, and pretty much every department has some really cool things that they give students an opportunity to do.
I still remember mine. It was the weirdest class. It was Tai Chi, Taoism, and Modern Psychology. And
Oh
it was
my
one of
gosh.
the coolest classes I took at Lehigh. They tried to teach me how to meditate. It did not work, but I wish it had. All right, so the last, how many people are typically in these seminars? Usually it's around 20 to 25. They try to make them very small, discussion based.
Yeah, in arts and sciences, it's usually no more than 20.
Great.
Yeah.
At the College of Engineering first year course, it's not 100% a seminar course, it's more of a project-based course, but they do have an in-class seminar that is the entire first year engineering class. So it's a relatively large seminar course, but then you get to break up into laboratory groups, which are about 20 people. So.
And the last question we'll do this evening is talk about finding a study abroad program. How do you go about doing that? How do you end up being in New Zealand?
Awesome. Okay, this is my favorite question. So basically, like, the thing that hurts me the most is like hearing people like second year, third year being like, oh, like I can't study abroad because I'm STEM, because that is so false. It is harder, yes, as a STEM major than maybe something else, but you have to just like be ready to start planning like your first year. Like for me, I went into the study abroad office, I think the second week of my freshman year, first semester. I just went in and was like, I'm going abroad, like what do I need to do? And the study abroad office at Lehigh is absolutely amazing, considering that I'm in New Zealand during a pandemic. Like they're being the best that they could possibly be. And they will work with you and they want to send you abroad. I don't have the numbers on it, but I'm pretty sure we sent at least like 300, 400 kids abroad this year. Basically, my advice is go into the study abroad office as soon as you can. And the biggest thing is you have to make a 4-year plan, which sounds daunting, but it's really not that hard. And honestly, like having a 4-year plan makes the registration for future semesters so much easier, because you know what classes you need to take, you know when you're going to take them, you might even know what times of the day they're offered. I just do mine on like a Google spreadsheet. I know Lehigh also has 4-year plan, like spreadsheets, which you can use as well. But yeah, the biggest thing is like start planning early, and like even if you don't know if you want to go abroad, like if you're on the fence, like just still do a 4-year plan anyways. And then because the sooner you start, the sooner you can see what classes you can move around. Like for example, in most CAS majors, in all, I'm pretty sure you have like humanities and social science requirements. So if you can kind of move those around to put them when you go abroad, that's ideal. If not, you know, I'm taking inorganic chemistry abroad. Like there are like universities that Lehigh will send you to abroad that have science courses. You know, you don't only have to take humanities or social science. Like I know engineers who have gone abroad, and I think it's one of the best things that you can do. I think going somewhere, experiencing a different culture is like hands down like what everyone should experience. I could talk about study abroad forever. I put my email in the chat, so feel free to email me about it. But definitely do it. Don't be afraid. It's awesome. I've also gone abroad to a few other countries on different programs, so if you want to hear about that as well, I will talk about that. But yeah.
Excellent. So
there are also a lot of other opportunities for you to go abroad during the summer or during the winter. So I didn't plan my life out like Rachel did, so I couldn't actually go abroad for a full semester, and I regret that I wasn't so proactive my first semester on campus. But I am getting a Spanish minor, so I was able to go abroad for 2 different summers, so I'm very fortunate in being able to do that. So my first summer after Lehigh, I went to Seville, Spain, and took classes towards my minor, and then my sophomore year summer, I went back to Spain, but this time to Pontevedra, and I worked in a hospital there, so that was really cool for me because I got to learn about the Spanish healthcare system and compare it to what I know about the United States healthcare system, and I got to like practice my medical and conversational Spanish with the surgeons. So basically, if you can't go abroad for a full semester for whatever reason, there's still a lot of really awesome opportunities for you to do it, whether it's through finding a program like I did, or through an ICOCA internship, or just programs through the different colleges. So Lehigh actually sends like a lot of short-term study abroad opportunities, or offers a lot of short-term study abroad opportunities over the summer or over the winter. So those are also available for you if either you can't or you don't want to commit to a full semester.
Excellent, and a great point. You can go abroad in a lot of different ways. There was a quick question about STEM athletes and study abroad. That's a lot, depending on when your season is and depending on the practices and the coaches' rules, but usually summer. We have spring break and winter break, so it may not be a year, it may not be a semester, but if you are proactive and you show up at study abroad first day, first year, I'm sure they will absolutely bend over backwards to help you and your coaches work something out. So thank you for that question. I do want to let our panelists know that we are so appreciative of them. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. Class of 2024, we hope that every single one of you come to Lehigh. If you haven't already deposited, I see some ED students here already, so that's awesome. Please reach out to our students, to our faculty. Please join our admitted student community. It's a great way to network. We've got some exciting things coming up in the next few weeks as you finalize your decisions. And have a great evening. Take it easy.